So we'll go ahead and get started. We have started recording this session. We will be making this recording available on our websites and potentially some other venues, but primarily our website. We want this meeting to be an opportunity for Q&A for folks on the phone, but also an opportunity to have a resource for information after this webinar is over. So we have a few different folks on the line, but before we do go through and I introduce their guest speakers, I wanted to do a quick rundown on our agenda and on our workshop today. So I'm Justine Reynolds with Yosemite Sequoia Resource Conservation and Development Council. I will be the facilitator for this session. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to put them into the chat box or you can unmute yourself. We are keeping everyone muted for the beginning of this session and you have the option to unmute yourself, but please try and keep yourself muted. I am not recalling what the phone code is for muting and unmuting. I believe it's *6, but I'm not sure. So we'll check on that for you. This is one of several workshops that we have been doing for the Fire Resilient Madera program. This particular one, we're a little bit more informational focused because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We wanted to make sure that we are providing the informational resources that everyone was looking for based on some of our previous meetings. So first of all, I will go through the agenda. We're starting in our welcome. I'm giving an introduction. I'll also go over the overall purpose of these workshops and also introduce our guest speakers. At 10, we'll have a presentation or a brief presentation from Madera County on current fire risk and other information. Then at 10:30 to 10:45, we'll have a session with NRCS and the EQIP program presented by Dennis Dudley. At 10:45, we'll have a presentation from CAL FIRE on the CFIP program presented by Mary Bourrier. Please let me know if that's the correct pronunciation. From 11 to 11:15, we will talk a little bit, Robert will be talking a little bit about our FireWise program that we are beginning to implement. Then at 11:15, we'll have a brief presentation from CAL FIRE just to talk about what's going on in the region. That will be with Sean Fairbanks and Len Nielsen. And then at 11:30, we'll do our wrap up. We'll talk about the current status of the Fire Resilient Madera Plan and some of our other projects. We'll also do any Q&A, general discussion that may come up, and then talk about our next steps and how to stay involved. And just as a reminder, please, if you are not muted, please also, while we have you all muted, please also keep all your devices turned to silent or off. Please feel free to take personal breaks. One of the great things about Zoom meetings is that you can, turn off your camera, turn on your camera, go and take a break. But please feel free to do that. We are honoring time today, so I will do my best to keep us on time and on track. Keeping, giving time for people to get on and off of the call as well. Additionally, please use common conversational courtesy. It can be a little bit challenging on Zoom calls, but please try not to interrupt other people. Use appropriate language. Don't make it hard to hear. If you have a question, you can also message any of our presenters privately who are on the call via Zoom in the group chat, and then we will also be monitoring that group chat for any Q&A. Also, treat each other with respect. All points of view have value, and humor is welcome, but not at the expense of others. And now that I have gone through the agenda, are there any questions before I move on to talking about the Fire Resilient Madera workshops? All right, so the purpose of these workshops is to set up a plan for prioritization of fuel breaks and maintenance to ensure a fire resilient Madera. We are doing that through a series of stakeholder engagement, including talking with the Forest Service and CAL FIRE to get their priorities, and then collecting the priorities of the community and members of the public in order to create a holistic plan for prioritization of fuel break projects throughout Madera County. We are also wanting to build community involvement in reducing fire risk around their homes, which is kind of the main purpose of this particular meeting. We had interest in our previous workshops about several different programs offered by both CAL FIRE and NRCS. And so we thought that this would be a good opportunity during this pandemic when people are doing a lot of webinars and a lot of informational resource sharing, that we would set up a webinar to provide timely info on some of these current programs as well as some upcoming programs. So yeah, that's the purpose of our workshops. Our end goal for these will be to have a finalized plan at the end of 2021 that can be used for implementation and maintenance of fuel breaks throughout Madera County. We encourage you to continue to participate in our program, but we will talk more about how to stay involved and stay participatory, at the end of this meeting. So I will go ahead and introduce our first speaker. I went through the agenda and talked about introduce everyone a little bit. But so our first speaker is Tom Wheeler and Robert McCauley from Madera County. So I will go ahead and hand the mic over to Tom and Robert.
Well, welcome everybody, and looking forward to see what we can do today and moving this forward, all of our two main projects, but I want to keep it open so if we need any more to come in. Also, I got to leave at 11 o'clock and go on another LAFCO meeting. We're having our budget hearing at 11 o'clock, so I'll have to leave at 11 and let you guys finish it up. And Robert, you got anything you want to say? Mr. McCauley?
Well, my friends call me Bobby, Tom. You know, we did just allocate some funds from our Title III funding at the county over to Yosemite Sequoia to aid them in their efforts for Fire Resilient Madera. So we're really excited about that, and working through that process with our admin team, and real hopeful that we can get those funds over there as soon as possible. If anybody has any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them.
That's it then. Let's move forward. Anybody got any question and answers from, questions from us? Okay, move on, Justine.
All right, sounds good. So we'll go ahead and move into our presentation from Dennis Dudley with NRCS on the EQIP program.
Natural resource. Thank you, Justine. The EQIP program is Farm Bill money run through the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, specifically regarding the fuel reduction. We cost share with private property owners on brushing and dead tree removal or live tree thinning if needed. This is generally in the area beyond 100 feet from somebody's residence. In some cases, we can help pay for dead tree removal within 100 feet of the house, but for the most part, it's beyond 100 feet. We pay on a per acre basis. It's a reimbursable, so you do the work and then we would pay you for it. The intent is not that we pay all of it. It's a cost share program, and so the intent is that we pay roughly 1/2 to 3/4. It just kind of depends. That's basically it. If we pay everything almost everything on a per acre basis. So if you do 1 acre or 150 acres, it doesn't matter. Whatever you do, we pay on a per acre basis. If anybody has any questions, they can call me. My number is 559-363-4595, And that's basically it. If they want to just call the office in general and talk to anybody, then they could call 559-674-4628. That makes all the phones in the office ring.
Now, Dennis, I've got the NRCS website up right now. Can we find your information on this site, or do we need to kind of just? I guess the question is, what can we find on this website, or should I? Do we?
Yeah, I
is
can,
the best?
I can answer
Yeah,
that, Robert.
yeah. Is the best way to find information about this program by calling you guys directly, or can we navigate the website and kind of get that information? I guess that's mainly the question.
I would say that the website is not very helpful. It's too general. And I recommend that you just call and talk to us.
Okay. And this number that's listed on the website, 674-4628, is that your guys' just go to your office?
Correct, Robert. That'll make all the phones ring.
Okay, gotcha.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
As you know, we spent almost $4,000 clearing our land after we filled all that stuff out. And then, as you said, and I thought that it was a go just to get it done and then let you know. So is there some way you could put some kind of warning on there? Because I guess it takes forever to get a contract out, because we did it boom right after we knew what was required.
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry?
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure who was talking to me, but and I'm on the phone, so I can't see the website that everybody's looking at. But
well, anyway, we're on the Gene Road East. I don't know if you remember. You did.
Oh, I do remember. Yes.
Yeah. So it just was a little surprising that it took so long, and we presumed that it was done after we filled all the paperwork out. So if there's some warning to people before they go and do all the work and spend the money and then don't get anything back, just some kind of warning that they need to. I'm glad I did it. I mean, I feel so much safer now, but as far as the program goes, it needs a little polishing, I think.
Well, I would say that rarely happens. So there must have been a miscommunication. That's all I could say. But so maybe we could do a better job letting people know about that. Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Dennis, this is Robert again. So I know you talked about eligibility, but is there income eligibility, or is it pretty broad as far as like who's eligible for this program?
So eligibility as far as income is you cannot have earned, averaged over the previous 3 years, more than $900,000 per year, as not on gross but adjusted gross income, which is basically your taxable amount. So it's $900,000 adjusted gross, and you have to be able to control the property that you're signing up. That could either be as the landowner or as somebody leasing that property.
So eligibility for income, that's pretty, just about everybody should be eligible, wouldn't you say?
Most people are. Occasionally I ran into someone who's not, but
okay.
Yeah, in general, most people are.
And just to kind of go back to what I think Sandy was talking about, basically, when you're going through this process, and it can be pretty lengthy as far as like reimbursements go and getting set up initially, is the general rule then to, if you're going to be applying for this program, to not start work until the paperwork's kind of that you've been approved?
Yeah, so the whole process, it is lengthy. So the first step would be you'd sign up, you fill out several forms to sign up. And then at some point we have a date where we cut off the applications and we gather all those applications that we have. And we rank them basically on environmental benefit. And then we're given a pot of money and we go down the list until the pot of money runs out. Some years we fund everybody, some years we don't. It just depends on how big the pot of money is. And that pot is shared from Nevada County down to Kern County. After we find out who gets funded, then it takes us some time to put the actual contract together. And so this whole process, depending when you sign up, could take several months. It's just kind of how it is. The government is not that flexible, I guess, and so we're kind of working within the confines of bureaucracy. But once you do get funded, then it's a pretty good program, and things work at your pace generally.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, and I would just add that it kind of demonstrates the difference between applying for a permit or something like that, versus submitting an application for what's essentially a certain amount of grant funding. It does take time for that to be processed because it's, you're asking for reimbursement in return. So, it does take time. I don't think there is any program that we are presenting here that is like a silver bullet that will be able to quickly provide results, but it will be able to provide assistance over probably a year or two to implement projects that relate to forest health and fuel reduction. So just wanted to add that. Any other questions? We have about 3 minutes. All right, well, hearing no other questions, is there anything else you'd like to add, Dennis, before we move on?
I don't think so. Just please feel free to call me.
All right, great. And we will add those phone numbers to the chat box as well so that folks can write that down more easily.
Okay, thank you, Justine.
Thank you. All right, well, that was a great presentation. And now we'll move on to talking about one of the other excellent programs that are available, the CAL FIRE CFIP program. Presenting for CAL FIRE is Mary Bourrier. Is that how I pronounce it?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. This is Mary Bourrier. Some of you, well, probably not, but maybe the CAL FIRE people know me as Mary Huggins through my 23-year career with CAL FIRE. And I'm here speaking today for Jolt Kate. He's my employee, and he had to be out in the field today, and I told him that I would help him in his area with this Zoom call to explain the CFIP program. And if anybody would like to contact him about CFIP in his area, his number is area code 209-443-4017. I have a PowerPoint I put together this spring for our work group for the state. It's supposed to be on our website, but with IT issues, it didn't make it. but we are all sharing it as much as we can because it explains the program as it is today in 2020. And we are funded through Proposition 68. So that is a specific, has specific requirements. So I updated the PowerPoint. So I am calling in, I can't see what's on screen, but I'm going to go with the second slide that starts off explaining what the California Forest Improvement Program is, its purpose, and just an overview. And I think people can read that for themselves. And I'll just continue to scroll to slide number 3. This is a cost share program. It's a reimbursement program. And legislatively, it can be either 90% or 75% as deemed by the director. And typically, we use 90% up to the cap rate, 75% on lands zoned timber production zone, and which are also over 500 acres. So, but most of the time, it's 90%. And as you can see, we use Proposition 68. We use a ranking form that's also legislatively driven. We have adjusted it to account for Prop 68 requirements. And there's more of that. There's a link that goes to our website. If you want to know more, I suggest you go to the CAL FIRE website, to the California Forest Improvement Program, and there's more information about that. Slide number 4 is eligibility. Now, I wanted to let everybody know this program has been around since the bill was passed in 1978. The 42-year-old program, it's probably one of the very best programs in our department. And I didn't work in this program up until 2016. I was doing other things, forest practices and some division work at the Lake Tahoe. And so coming into the CFIP program has been it's just been really enjoyable. I love working with our landowners. So who's eligible? It has to be the landowner. We don't put into agreements with leaseholders. You have to have at least 20 acres of forest land and no more than 5,000 acres, ownership-wide in the state of California. So this is for smaller forest landowners. And there are some caveats. If your land is not in timber production zone, TPZ, then we do require what's called a land use addendum. CAL FIRE will record it against the property when there's groundwork performed. And basically, it's considered an insurance policy for the state, the taxpayers who are helping to pay for the improvement of your property. The only way that we can assure that work that the taxpayers paid for isn't undone, so to speak, is with a land use addendum. So, for example, if a landowner wanted to start pulling permits or subdivide or other non-compatible uses, it would flare up at the county recorder's office. But it's typically not a problem. And if there was a change of ownership and the new owner said, hey, I am not interested in CFIP, I'm going to build a home and a garage and a big, this, that, and the other, and it's on the land that were treated by CFIP, then we can do what's called a rescission of land use addendum. Doesn't happen often, though. Typically, $150,000 is a maximum project cost that we're looking at. So we can spread that funding out statewide. Next slide. Well, that just goes TPZ. If your land's zone TPZ or Williamson, you don't have to go through the land use addendum. If there's a conservation easement, that's fine. It just has to we have to make sure that forest management practices are compatible with it. So we do want a copy of it. Not usually a problem. Anyway, that's just stating you need to be prepared to submit it. Eligibility, we will not go into contract with a landowner who is who had a commercial harvesting operation, and let's just say there's some slash left over. We're not going to come in and clean that up. They have to do that under the California Forest Practices Act rules and regulations. And we also do not go into contract if they have an NRCS equip contract concurrent on the property. So we keep CFIP wholly separate. There is no commercial operations associated with the CFIP program. It's purely non-commercial. That's a pretty big deal. That's in the legislative language too. We use rates that are established rates, cap rates. They can be either using a contractor or self-labor, and those are approved by the State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection. The last change in the rates was 2017. So we are not looking to raise our rates at this time. And before you start any project work, you have to have a CAL FIRE approved forest management plan, a CFIP forest management plan for the entire ownership. But once you have that, you can come back, within a few years or so and just do the groundwork. It's kind of a once and done unless there's major changes. And we do help pay for that. The next slide, eligible landowners, trusts, nonprofits, I see LLCs a lot. I see a lot of trusts, family trusts, things like that. Next slide. So what do we pay for? We pay for the development of a CFIP forest management plan. We pay for registered professional forester supervision, site prep, planting, tree shelters, and follow-up to planting, such as herbicide application, pre-commercial thinning or release, pruning, and what we call follow-up/disposal, which is anything above and beyond lop and scatter. So mastication, pile burning, not broadcast burning, just pile burning, and chipping, things like that. We also pay for habitat improvement and wildlife fisheries upon approval by the CAL FIRE forester if it maintains or enhances directly water quality or wildlife habitat. Next slide. These are just photos of past projects. I can go through those pretty quickly. And like I said, we want to get this onto our website so everybody can take a look at it. So you can see the work that was done. We have before and afters. That's a tree planting, obviously, and then Dexar tubing, like tree shelters. You can all see all of these slides. I'm on slide 15. The thinning, post thinning, slide 16. Slide 17. The King Fire, this area was cleared and it's ready to be planted. And you can just see these are where we've done work and where work wasn't done after the 1999 Pendola fire. We do prioritize fire burn properties. So I'm on slide 19. Speak for themselves. Slide 20, before and after. So I'll keep going here. So remember, and this was a point that some of our other CAL FIRE foresters wanted into this slideshow, that you must have an approved management plan before you can propose any groundwork. So therefore, your first CFIP contract will be for hiring a registered professional forester to prepare the management plan. Got to have the plan. That's your CEQA document. And the reasons you need a plan, it's identify and prioritize your goals, build your team of consultants, document property and project history, to gather all existing surveys and data, get your management schedule on paper, and to meet the legal requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, and ultimately obtain cost share grant funding for project implementation. And your CFIP management plan can also be used for NRCS equip project work. So that's an important thing to remember, and vice versa. So slide 24, here's your steps. This is how you get started. You got to contact your local forestry assistant service forester. That would be Jolt Kate. and he is headquartered up in San Andreas for the Tuolumne Calaveras unit, but he has MMU as his area too. And talk to the Jolt about your, to find out if you're in the game, you know, or would you be eligible for funding? And he can guide you. And if you are, then he can start you on how to get started. And the first thing is you need to hire a registered professional forester, contract with them. And this is before, obviously, you have a state contract. They're going to help you to write a project description and put the maps together and put the application together with the budget to submit preliminarily to Jolt to see what you have going. And then the field inspection. He'll go out with the forester, the registered professional forester, and the landowner to look at the project and make sure it's viable. Make sure everything's good to go. If it isn't, fine tune it. But this is where you find out if you're, until we get to that point, we really won't know for sure until we see it if you're eligible, you know, if it's going to make the cut through funding. There are projects that it may look like, hey, this should be a go, but until you get out there, we don't know really for sure. We need to look at it. So, and so let's say you're in, it looks like a good project, your forester has your project description, everything's together, the application package. So then once the whole package is in and you've submitted your deed or your trust, all those proof of ownership, so to speak, and the contract forms, all the signatures, this, that, and the other, Jolt sends that up to the Reading office, and on a quarterly basis against all of the other projects in the state with the CFIP program, it gets ranked. One of the things we're looking at is if a project, how well it meets the Prop 68 requirements for serving a severely disadvantaged community as mapped, or if it doesn't. Are there other field breaks around it? Are they completed? Are they in a planning phase? And does the local CAL FIRE unit have this area identified in their unit fire management plan? Things like that really add up for a project for Prop 68 funding. So I am on slide 28, and highest ranking, we start at the top. And we give a fair shake to all the areas in the state, but definitely we want to put our money out on the ground that's really going to provide the best benefit for the greater good of a community. So even though a project may look good, if it's out in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing going on around it in terms of fuel reduction, it's probably not going to make the cut. But if it's located in an area where there's other activity going on, or it definitely shows a benefit to, I solicit the local battalion chiefs, find out, hey, this project, how well is it going to help you? And I've had DCs definitely tell me where they need some fuel reduction work. If there's a wind coming from the east, they want to have a fuel break in a certain location, and or if it's coming from the southwest, they could, really use some work over here. It's identified in the fire management plan. And oftentimes the local fire safe council, perhaps the Forest Service, Sierra Pacific Industries, other properties are doing some work that can also beef up, help to beef up the overall picture of fuel reduction. So we're always looking for that. What else is going on around it to make it a stronger project for funding? So you need to have your management plan. It will be 90% up to the cap rate reimbursement, and Jolt would need to approve it, and then it goes to Reading where it's approved. It has to meet all the requirements. He'll work with the RPF on that. Once that's done, it's CEQA review. So there's certain things that need to happen. We need to go through an archaeological survey, has to be approved also by CAL FIRE archaeologists. And then the California Natural Diversity Database, the CANDDB run. We send that out to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, notifying them, making sure that we're that they're in approval of the project and not having any deleterious effect on wildlife. And then we also send a letter notification to the local water board. Same thing. They have 30 days. Everybody has 30 days to provide input. We're under a programmatic environmental impact report. So really, they've, you could say, been solicited on the program and exactly what we do. But project by project, we always notify, and they have 30 days. If they don't respond, then it's automatically cleared. So when can you begin your groundwork? You can begin once all the environmental documentation has been taken care of, and the forest advisor for CAL FIRE will definitely be issuing the letter and stating that that everything is environmentally cleared, management plan's done, archaeological stuff is done, approved, Fish and Wildlife, Water Board, ready to go. So once that letter is received, per the terms of the contract, you can start work. You can hire whomever you wish to do the work. The bottom line is we pay on a per acre basis, just like NRCS. And when it's time to invoice, the CAL FIRE forester goes out with the RPF, and we want to make sure it meets spec and GPS it, make sure, get that acreage figure, make sure everything matches up. And then we send that invoice. If everything's good to go, there's a process for invoicing. We send that in. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get paid back. We require all grantees pay up front their contractors, their equipment operator, their RPF, anybody else, somebody spraying herbicide. We want to see all of those receipts and have them shown as paid as well. You can also do the work yourself, different rates, but it is under self-labor. You have to track your hours on a form. And remember, we only pay up to a capped rate. So those hourly rates, we track those. So I don't see that very often. And when I have, people have regretted it because it's a lot of hard work. And they wonder why they really thought they could do all that. So just something to remember. And then, invoicing, again, how do I get reimbursed? There's a process for that. I think everybody can read that. And minimum of 5 acres of treatment for each invoice, usually not a problem. We have a field inspection, and the forest advisor for CAL FIRE, forestry assistant specialist, will approve it or not, or make recommendations. And the process, once you've been through it, the RPF knows how to do it. It's not a big problem. When we, like I said, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get reimbursement. And things to remember, these are really important items. This is screen 36. Landowners must pay up front for the cost of the project work before we can reimburse them. So you got to have that funding. We don't have an income. We don't talk to people about how much they make. All we want is to make sure that they understand that they have to pay out of pocket up front, and anything over the cap rate, they need to pay out of pocket too. The bottom line of it is you need to be able to pay for this. This isn't just, handing out money. We really have to have people who are committed financially. And we understand that some people just don't feel they may be land rich and money poor. We see that quite a bit. So it's just something that it's very important to know. And like I said, if the cost of the project practice exceeds the listed maximum cap rate, then the landowner has to pay that difference. And they must hire a registered professional forester. And to find one, contact your local forest advisor, which is Jolt, and he can help you with that. Not all consulting foresters work in this program. It's not that they can't, but some just don't. And it's the ones that are engaged in the program understand it very well. And here's a list, it's the last slide, of the forest advisors. I'm in the Northern Sierra. If Jolt is, for whatever reason, unavailable, I would leave him a message, but you could always come to me if you have a question. I have the Amador, El Dorado, Sacramento, Alpine, Nevada, Yuba Placer, Sierra County area. So I'm just north of him. And that's all. Does anybody have any questions?
Mary, I just want to confirm, Jolt's number is 209-754-2707.
Well, that might be his cell. I gave out his desk number. It's 209-443-4017, but it's the number on listed is fine to use.
Okay.
209-754-2707. That's fine.
This is Tom Wheeler. On that, Matt Watson proposed last year to do a equip program burn on Madera County property on Highway 49 by one of the subdivisions there. I'm a blank. Anyway, have you heard anything about that? What the process is, or progress is, if they've done any more on it?
Are you talking about a vegetation management plan, prescribed fires with CAL FIRE? Oh, yes. I'm going to refer that to Battalion Chief for Merced Mariposa Unit, Sean Fairbanks, if he's on the line. That's a I don't deal with the.
Sean, are you there? Is Sean there?
He could be on fire, actually. I would have to.
This is Len Nielsen. I'm on. I know that there was some talk, Tom, about the 49 project with Chief Watson. To my knowledge, we haven't developed a plan yet, and that would probably be a VMP instead of a CFIP. So CFIP usually won't do burn plans, so that will fall under our VMP or VTP program.
Okay. You guys got too many programs to keep up with.
The best thing is, reach out to that local forester, and then the local forester can kind of direct the landowner or the county to the right program.
Perfect. You guys do a great job. I use a lot of you down at Wiley Ranch. So.
This is Sandy Weed, Tom. I have some property up on Deadwood, and you know how we just had a fire up there, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's like 20 or 40 acres that I've got up there, and it would connect to, you know how they have to go through those 14 gates to get up there, and they're always getting lost up there. It's just ridiculous. And I have some property that where that 40-mile-an-hour turn is, if you go up there, then if I could clear that property and put a road that would connect up to, used to be Gilmore. I don't know if somebody else owns that property, but it would connect to the road up there. If the possibility of putting a road in there, then I'd go through all this work to get this done, because I wouldn't want to put a connection road in there because I've done that before, where you put a road in and then they say there's too much fuel, that they would never go up there.
That happens too. Well, Sandy, the best thing to do is to talk to Dennis and or Sean Fairbanks or Lynn Nielsen and see which program would fit it. Whether you do the road or not, it would be good to brush that off up there. We've had, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 control burns. We can still do burns, but we can start doing them again now. So that's really good. The airborne, everybody for pushing them. But the road deal up there is just pitiful, because there's right-of-ways, there's no right-of-way. There's
I know.
tribal land that they say there's no road through it. And it's been a hassle, and it's all private roads. There's no county roads, so it makes it kind of rough. So.
Well, should I try to check on the program or check on the road? Because it's a lot of work.
No, check on the program. The roads, we can, if there's projects like that, everybody can go through. But so you need to check the program which fits you the best. And that's when I say talk to Dennis Dudley or Dennis Fairbanks or Lynn Nielsen, Matt Watson, and find out which program would fit your best bet, you know, for getting it cleared up.
Yeah, I know Dennis Fairbanks, so, all right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay.
Mary, I had a question. So we were talking about landowners that are money rich and cash poor. For the project requirement, do they have, if they have 20 acres, can they do a project that's a smaller acreage in order to deal with that limitation of cash availability, or does it need to be an at least 20-acre project?
No, well, are you asking me if they have, as an example, let's say they have 500 acres, but they only want to treat, 50 of it. Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah, something like that. Is there like an acreage cap, like a number of acres that need to be treated to apply?
Only 5. So what does happen, the management plan and the archaeological survey are for the entire ownership. That's just the whole thing. But you don't have to treat the whole acreage. For example, you can bite, and I tell people this, you can bite off a little bit at a time. Just prioritize your area, working with your RPF and CAL FIRE, and then start where, it's reasonable. It has to be at least 5 acres. And just for funding purposes, make it somewhat competitive. We wouldn't just want to have 5 acres, but yeah, if they say, hey, I can only do this much right now, my plan is to apply again for this other 40, but I'm going to start with this 40-acre piece over here, they can do that.
Okay.
They don't have to treat the whole thing. I mean, they may not even need to, depending on stand conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes when we talk to folks about the different programs and we talk about the 20-acre limit, they find that they think about it as, I have to treat all 20 acres, and it is daunting when still thinking about the amount that they have to provide and providing them funding up front. So I think that's helpful for when we communicate with our the landowners we work with about the actual costs involved.
Yeah, and one thing we're finding is that the smaller ownerships sometimes are difficult because you have 20 acres, but maybe they only need to treat or want to treat half of that. And with the limited amount of funding, you know how that goes. It gets difficult to prioritize that small of an acreage on the landscape, especially when we have, the campfire and all the, fires all over the place, especially in the North State lately, and those are prioritized. But to make that point again, just on a broad brush basis, just because you have X amount of acres doesn't mean you have to treat the whole thing.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? All right, well, I don't hear any more questions. So thank you very much, Mary. Really appreciate the rundown on the CFIP program. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we move on to the next presenter?
No, that's it. If they have any questions, you can contact Jolt and go from there.
All right, great.
Thank you, everybody. I got to leave. And so the next thing is the Firewise program. We allotted some money for that now. So Bobby will stay on, I hope, and explain any things that Robert don't know or needs to know. And thank everybody for participating. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Tom. All right, well, our next presenter is actually one of our facilitators. So Robert Hopkins with Yosemite Sequoia will be presenting on our Firewise program.
Okay. Yeah, I'm super excited about the Firewise program. We were recently awarded $50,000 from Madera County through the Title III program. Board of Supervisors unanimously voted to fund the program. FireWise is a national program through the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association. Title III is a federal program. It's technically called the Secure Rural Schools Act, and which is a specific pool of money that can be used for either FireWise communities, search and rescue, and general fire protection and things like that. And so our program will be funded through this Title III money. Yosemite Sequoia will be partnering with Core School RC&D to coordinate FireWise communities, and when we will get new communities up and going, and assist them with implementing projects to not only reduce fuels, but also to just in general just to maintain that status as a FireWise community. And which, if you're on the FAIR plan, and Bobby might be able to talk a little bit more about insurance and what FireWise can mean for insurance, it will give you a 10% reduction in your insurance rates. So there is the benefit there. But I think one of the greatest parts about this program that we are just now getting up and going. It was only I believe within the last couple of weeks that the Board of Supervisors approved this funding. Is that if you organize your community and you get everybody together and start the process of becoming a FireWise community, and then once you become a FireWise community, you have just a greater chance of I want to say just going after funding. Well, it'll just be that much easier, better. For instance, Yosemite Sequoia has applied for a grant through PG&E to do work within several FireWise communities in the county, and so we hope that that sort of thing could be applied to these new communities and just moving forward. Another great thing about this program is that we actually have money available for implementation. While it's not a whole lot of money, but if you go through the process, which it's a fairly simple process, actually, I could kind of walk you through it. But once you are a established FireWise community, there is going to be money set aside to assist your community with implementation and fuel reduction. I'm just going to pull up the website real quick. It's you can find this yourself just by going to nfpa.org, and let me throw it up on the site here. So if you just go to nfpa.org, it blew away. Okay, up here in the upper right corner is FireWise USA, and this is just until we get up and running. You can just find all this information on your own. This will be basically what we will be providing to folks that are interested in this program. And so pretty much what you're looking for is the Firewise USA site, if it won't stop jumping around. So basically, you'll find all the information that you need here, and this is what we'll be using to help folks get on board. For instance, there's a portal where you can. This is basically where everything happens. You'll log in, you'll upload all your files to maintain your status as a Firewise community. I'm here to assist with that, as well as Core School RCD. So basically, the resources are there. Everything's right here. I'm available to assist with to get you started. Right now, I'm working with a couple communities already, even though the program is just getting up and going. And I've also talked with Chuck and Sandy about Firewise and the Gene Road, Gene West in that area, and that's a perfect area because a lot of I guess I would say perfect, communities that are perfect for Firewise or just for any sort of organization, to either to mobilize or to to develop a plan are these one way in, one way out communities. And I know for Gene Road, especially, there has been already on it's already on CAL FIRE's radar for that evacuation route. But as a kind of a unified force, you can kind of sanction somebody as a resident leader to lobby on behalf of the community. So it's a lot of great benefit there just by organization itself, let alone the potential for grant funding and the like. And so for now, while we get up and going, share this information with neighbors within the community. I'll be doing just general outreach until we establish the Firewise coordinator position. And it really just you send me an email. I'll drop it in the chat. It'll be on our website. So we'll have a pretty you'll be able to find out. You'll be able to get a hold of us pretty easily to find out more, and I can help walk you through the process. I'm still learning myself the ins and outs, but together, we're going to make it happen. Another thing that I'd like to just briefly touch on that, and Bobby, if you're still on, if you can. And I think, Bob, Bob, is there still going to be AmeriCorps people potentially doing any Firewise outreach for the next coming weeks?
Yeah, we're pretty hopeful they'll get up here soon. They're actually down in the valley waiting on test results right now. So for those of you that don't know, there's a testing center down in the fairgrounds that does offer free testing for COVID-19. However, the test results take about 72 hours to get. So they've been sitting in a hotel room since I think Monday afternoon, waiting on those test results so they can get up here and get to work. I don't know that they have their schedule ironed out just yet, but my understanding is they're going to be here till the beginning of July, I think through July 4th weekend. So we do have a variety of projects lined up for them. Their primary focus is pushing their Listos campaign, which of course is Spanish for get ready. And so that is an emergency preparedness campaign that does fit very well with the Firewise USA. So they are excited to work with you guys, and I know they'll be reaching out to you as soon as they get everything figured out. It's just been as everything has kind of an unusual process. with as a result of the whole COVID-19 pandemic. So going back to the Title III funding, though, the county is pretty excited. As you indicated, Robert, the organization within the communities is going to be real beneficial to work with, communities rather than I think it's going to make them a lot more competitive when they're going out looking for grants. And specifically on that Title III funding, there is, I think, a 45-day waiting period before we can spend those funds. So we have put in that notice for comments into the Sierra Star, I think, as of yesterday. And as soon as that is done, I think we can get to work. So real excited.
That sounds great. And yeah, and another thing on the funding, there is potential to use this $50,000 or a portion of it as for matching funds for other grants through CAL FIRE, and so that's another thing that can make our the county-wide, or at least Eastern Madera County, more competitive for those types of funds. So that's a pretty great prospect there.
Then, Robert, as you know, there is, a pretty good balance of funds in the account, and we do receive additional funds every year through our Title III allocation. So, assuming we do find some success and some traction in the program, I would expect that there would be more funds available next year as well. So,
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, just kind of success building on success is what we hope to.
Robert, I have a question. This is Sandy.
Yes, go ahead, Sandy.
Right now, it's kind of a hard time to get a community together because of the COVID thing. But I do have a list that we made several years ago, an email list. Maybe you and I could get together and we could figure out what I could do to send out something to let the people in this area know about this. And I think they'd all be interested with the insurance thing. So,
Oh yeah.
But the hard part right now is like we've had a meeting several years ago, and that's how we got all these numbers, or email addresses and telephone numbers and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I could utilize that to get this going. But if you could contact me later, and maybe we could work on something together to figure out how to do this.
Yes, definitely. And I have your email, and so yeah, this is pretty much how it starts is with a resident leader or somebody taking the lead, and you already have the head start of some organization with an email list, and that's basically all we need to get started. Is just a general area, which I can send you a map. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing with these other communities. Is just basic, just try to rough out the area. Gather our contacts, form a committee. Then once we have that committee formed, then we can create the site through the portal through Firewise, and just there's a couple more steps. I think the hard part for this program is, in which I don't really. It is the organization. It is the coordination part, getting everybody on board and working together. But everything else is fairly just straightforward. They make it very easy. They being the NFPA. So yeah, let's go ahead and get it started. And after this, I will go ahead and contact you with more information, and then from there, if you like to share it within the Gene Road area and with anybody else, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I would just like to add that our most recent PG&E is one of many projects that we have done in the existing Firewise communities in Madera County. And so we really have a solid program of work and experience in working with these Firewise communities. And, the main thing that I can say in terms of what works best is coordinating with your community members, really coming from a place of working as a community to better your community. There is a requirement for some small amount of volunteer hours that go along with the Firewise community, but that, again, that's another thing that just makes it much more competitive. And it's the sort of thing where if you do brushing for 2 hours in a given year on your property, you can count that as match. So the match requirements are really minimal, and it really adds to our ability to apply for matching for grants that require matching funding. It's really helpful and makes us very competitive when we go for these grants. I did also want to highlight that we're very excited about running this program, and also that we have some, in addition to some of the other work that we have talked about, we also have some funding for capacity building that will be over the next year, that will include some activities like facilitation training, some other stuff. So if something like that might be helpful for some of our community leaders and community Firewise community coordinators who may need some, may want some help with facilitation training in their community, or just, managing folks within their community and getting that training and that experience. So we really want to not just create these communities, but really empower our community leaders. So that's definitely something that we are really looking forward to. Are there any other questions?
Just saw that Ashley just joined us. We've been emailing back and forth recently regarding the Mudge Ranch area, and that's one of the areas that we're working on. Mudge Ranch, Still Meadow, and then now I think I would say Jean Road for sure. So if there's anything, yeah. If there's anything else, I'll drop my contact info in the chat, and you can always just find us at on our website, ysrcandd.org. Great.
Well, it's a little bit after 11:15, so I think it's time for us to move on. Thanks, Robert, for that presentation. So last presentation that we have before we wrap up is Len Nielsen with CAL FIRE MMU and Region. I don't believe Sean Fairbanks is with us today. So if Sean, so Len, go ahead and would love to hear from you on how things are going at the regional level.
Sure, thank you so much. Yeah, Sean Fairbanks is the battalion chief for the area, and good contact for Chuck and Sandy there. If you have additional questions or are interested in doing some fuel reduction work on your property. For me, I run the VMP program out of the region, so from Sacramento down to San Diego, as well as prescribed fire for the region. So currently, of course, CAL FIRE is updating, or is currently going into fire season, the full swing of fire season, where we will be at full staff, and we will be shutting down any kind of prescribed burns across the region here shortly. Each unit identifies their own time period when they shut it down, and you have to contact your local fire station or unit to find out if in fact it's shut down. On that regard, we are seeing an uptick across the region in fires. Yesterday we had about 13 fires in the region, and today we have about 6 that are still going in the southern region. So we are seeing an uptick as the grasses dry off, and we're getting more and more roadside starts. For the VMP program and fire prevention program, the grants program, they are going to have an open grant period, and it will be in July this year. Right now, the grants program has $67 million for a funding source for this year. So I encourage folks like the Yosemite Sequoia Resource Conservation District to apply, as they have in years past, for some meaningful grant projects. Again, that's opening up early this year in July. So it's coming up pretty soon. We are going to work on getting some workshops out to the public on the grants program. We haven't nailed down the dates or locations yet, but the grants management unit is working on that right now for the southern region. When that schedule comes out, we'll post it online on our grants webpage with CAL FIRE, as well as I can notify Justine directly for this group to know when those grant workshops will be taking place. That's about all I have from region. Any questions for me that I can answer?
Great. Thanks, Lynn. I had one question. Is it both the forest health and fire prevention?
So I know it's fire prevention right now, and I haven't determined yet if it's forest health. It should be forest health at the same time because we're trying to run those two programs parallel.
Great.
Any other questions for me? I can't really speak on behalf of the unit other than they are always looking for projects. Of course, as with anything else, they're limited with funding, just like every department. We are looking at a decrease in funding for next year with our programs. However, through the cap and trade program, we did receive the $200 million a year for 5 years, and there's 2 years remaining on that. So this coming grant cycle, we should be unaffected. Next grant cycle, we should be unaffected. It's the year after that we don't know right now.
Great, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, Len, this is Robert. Can you talk a little bit about the prescribed burn on 41, or is that kind of out of your scope?
Absolutely, I helped do that. Both nights. Originally, that was a governor's project where we did the roadside burning along 41 from Road 200 at the Park and Ride all the way down to the Madera Canal, which is 11 miles of roadside burning. So we were very successful this year in getting that burned off safely and completely. So looking forward to a good summer with that initial grass crop burned off. Last year, we were able to document 3 vehicle fires that occurred next to that fuel break, and none of them went into the vegetation. So, at least it prevented 3 vehicle fires along that stretch of roadway. In fact, on my way to work as a deputy IC for that operation, there was a car fire right there at the canal on the asphalt that I had to divert and be the IC for a few minutes while other resources came on scene. So that is the point of that fuel break right there, is to prevent car fires and sparks and chains dragging, mufflers exploding, things like that, from catching the roadside and then going off into the wildland. That disc line is minimal and meant to be minimal. It's only 8 to 10 feet wide, and under higher wind conditions, flame lengths can exceed that in the grass. If the grass is a couple feet high, those flame lengths under 15-mile-an-hour wind can be over 10 feet in length and can reach across that disc line. So having that little bit of extra protection along that 11-mile stretch is very beneficial, and we look forward to, or I say we because I was a MMU employee for a while, but MMU looks forward to maintaining that as a fuel break and fuel reduction project every year.
That's great. Hey, just real quick, last question. We hear this I've heard this question quite a bit. Why only the east side of the road?
So that is purely because of weather. Typically along that stretch of highway, the way it's situated along the valley floor, the predominant wind is from west to east. So we typically hardly ever see the wind go the other direction. So if we do get a spark on the other side, it's going against the wind, and we have plenty of time to get to it with resources, from the different stations, Station 8 and 7, Coors Gold Station. We have plenty of time to get to that initial attack before that fire really even gets to the disc line on the east side or on the west side. So that's why we do the east side.
Cool. Thank you. That's all I got.
Yep. All right. Any other questions for me? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Len. So that we're coming to the end of our Fire Resilient Madera workshop. This was a very, as we mentioned at the top of the meeting, this was a very informational focused meeting. We thought based on everything that's going on with the pandemic and it entering into fire season, that now would be a good time to provide some of this information on these programs that may be helpful to get into that queue, so that by the end of the summer you have maybe your paperwork's done and you can be getting into doing some of that fuel reduction over the winter. So we are working on scheduling our next Fire Resilient Madera plan. We expect the next one to be much more in line with our typical, and we will be looking at criteria for analysis. And also we have spent the last 2 meetings collecting people's interest area and projects. And so we'll be presenting a more holistic map of here are all the project areas that folks have expressed interest in, combined with fire risk data, flame length data, stuff like that. And we're all, in addition, places where it is likely that fuel reduction could occur safely. So we're excited to bring that to the community for our next workshop. Again, we will be letting everyone who is on our mailing list know. If you are not already on our mailing list for this program, you can email either me or Robert and we'll put you on that program. You also can go to our website, ysrcandd.org, to find more information on the program and any of our programs that we are currently running. Are there any general questions about the Fire Resilient Madera program or any of the projects that Yosemite Sequoia is working on? We are currently implementing one project in the sugar pine on private lands, and then we are working on implementation on setting up implementation for several other projects in the area.
Justine, did you get the note that your Sequoia NEPA should be valid for the Sugar Pine project and the Cedar Valley project?
I did not yet, but thank you that's good to know.
So the trick with that is, as long as the NEPA, EIA, or EA covered the species if it covered the species on the private land, it counts. But if you have the 1038s, then those would cover the Sequoia portion as well. My understanding is on the private land, you have 1038s, and on the federal land, you have an EA or an EA. Yeah. So then you should be covered.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Hi, Justine. I had a quick question. I wasn't able to get on the meeting earlier, and I was hoping that you guys are going to have it fully recorded so I can review what I missed.
Yes. Yeah, we are recording the session. And we'll be posting the recording to our website, I believe. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes, that's right. We are recording, and this whole presentation will be uploaded probably very slowly, but it will get up there eventually.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we'll also make sure that any of the CAL FIRE PowerPoint presentation that we'll try and send that out to folks as soon as possible. So that's our main discussion. Again, how do you stay involved? As I mentioned, we have all of our information is on our website. That website again, ysrcandd.org. We have information on our Fire Resilient Madera program, on all of the projects that we're working on under our Madera Strategic Wildfire Mitigation Project. We also have information on some of our other projects that we're working on, including fuel reduction on reforestation on the French fire, fuel reduction on several Forest Service project areas, as well as our Regional Forest and Fire Capacity Sub-Grantee Program with the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So we have a lot of different programs, and that one's providing capacity building assistance. So we have a lot of different programs that are going on right now. If you want to find out information on any of those, they're available on our website. To stay more involved with this program, you can stay on our websites. We also, Robert, do you want to talk about our Facebook group?
Yeah, so we started a little Facebook group for this program specifically. I'm not sure who all's on there, if that's that's been part of this discussion, but you can, let me go ahead and drop the link right now into the chat. That way you have it. It's just basically facebook.com groups or /group/Fire Resilient Madera. And it'd be great to, get some of this discussion going in between these workshops and kind of reinforce the ideas that we're putting forward, as well as making resources available, such as this recording and other like the CAL FIRE CFIP presentation, as well as NRCS. We already have NRCS links and as units within that group. So it's a great resource. And yeah, I'd be happy to, I'd like to see it grow. So if you want to share it, that'd be awesome.
Well, thank you so much for everybody for your time today. Thank you particularly to our presenters for taking time out of their day to provide this information. Thank you, and have a great rest of your Thursday afternoon.
Hey, Robert, this is Tom.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Tom. Yep.
Hey, I got Facebook on my phone here. Do you hit the question mark deal to find our Facebook thing? How do you get on? How do you do that?
Well, I just dropped the link into the chat.
Into the what?
Into the chat in the Zoom chat.
You also can search Fire Resilient Madera and it should come up.
Right.
What was that again?
If you go to the search option in Facebook, you should be able to find Fire Resilient Madera.
Oh, Fire Resilient. Okay.
And it is a public group, so just about anybody, can join and share the info within that group.
Good.
Yeah. And we also have a mailing list that's attached to both our Fire Resilient Madera and our website. So there is information on our website on how to sign up for our mailing list as well.
Okay. Fire Resistant Madera?
Fire Resilient Madera. Yep.
Hi, this is Jack.
No, I just joined it, right? You got 16 members.
Yep, it's growing. Go ahead, Jack.
I had a quick question. Just curious on how many acres have been completed for the 2,000-acre fuel break grant project.
We are only just getting started on implementation. So far, we have completed about. We haven't completed. We are still finishing our environmental compliance. So as Len mentioned, we just got confirmed that we're good to go on several of our projects. So we are. We have completed, I think, around 15 so far, and then we have about 600 scheduled for later this year, pending on having all of our agreements with Forest Service in place.
Gotcha. So the majority of that 600 acres will be on federal land?
Yes. But there are additional acres that we're completing in the Cedar Valley community as well as the Sugar Pine community. And then we have some additional projects with Bissett Laterals area and a couple of other projects that we're working on.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Well, Robert and I will stay on if there are any further questions, but I think that's it for this workshop. Have a great day, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you, everybody.